You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Okay, a couple items we have to get to now. This is almost becoming, the meeting at the office, but we do it at the end, which the difference is people want to stick around for this one. I posted something to Instagram about Legends clothing brand where they made me some custom stuff with a logo and my name on it. I only have like a couple of them, and I gave one to my brother. So maybe something in the future. I'm a huge fan of their clothing and a huge fan of the brand. We're working on something, but I don't know if it's ever going to be something that's available to buy. So people were asking. There you go. All right, we got that one out of the way. Okay. We got a couple fight ones that were pretty good, but I don't know if I want to fire you guys up on a Friday. I'm worried. Kyle, don't you think that's a bad idea? There's like 3 fight questions
in a row.
All right. Yeah. Enjoy your Friday. Let's do one because I like it. Good choice. And then somebody else kind of did like a longer thing, but I just thought it was good. I thought it was well written. So maybe I'll just leave everybody on a positive note with that, because it's not straight advice. All right, so here we go. Kyle sends it. I got into a fight last week, so no doubt this is why he grabbed it. Okay, short backstory. Best buddy, roommate, and I were out smoking a late night cigarette. A jokester comes by saying he remembers selling us cigs back in the day down a few streets. We laughed because we thought the guy was a local, and we obviously didn't buy cigarettes from him on 63rd Street in Philadelphia. One, that couldn't have been farther from the truth, and it's an odd thing to say to someone you've never met. All right, look, late at night, you guys are out there with a couple late darts. You never know what you're going to run into. He carries his joke on for a little while. My friend and I lightheartedly say, okay, time to move on. Anyone with half a brain walks away. Okay, but not if he's been drinking. I think he carried on this dumb jokes and antics for another 5 minutes. My friend Ben and I are not being the assholes here. We hang out, let whatever happens, happen. Then the kid took things to another level. As a joke, he started slamming his hands on car hoods and screaming, "Never funny." So basically, that should have been your first warning when you're like, hey, this isn't funny. And he starts smashing cars, screaming, "Never funny." He started pushing people who walked by. He started doubling down on his bad jokes and screaming curse words into the air. He said it was very inappropriate. So Ben and I, who are much bigger than him, stand up and repeat, "It's time for you to go." He laughs it off and starts apologizing. At the same time, our other roommate, who is, he says, self-admittedly much smaller, I think science would also admit it too, walks out to ask about the situation. We explain, and he lets out a laugh saying, "Yeah, it seems like you should go. We're headed to bed." The kid immediately gets up in his face and shoves him, saying he will fight him. So now we're 25, 30 minutes into this, and the guy says not a word to me or my roommate. I'm 225. The other guy weighs 250. So the huge guy loses his mind on the kid and shoved him back a good 100 feet. It probably wasn't 100, but yeah, I get the point. All right. When I went near him, I lifted him up under his arms and threw him as far as I could. His friend kept him up, and when he landed, I pile drove him right back into the sidewalk. No punches. So his friend just watched you toss his friend probably realized the guy that was making the jokes and wanted to fight your smaller roommate. He probably kind of knew that his friend was wrong. So maybe he didn't want to fight with you guys. And it sounded like you guys are big dudes anyway. All right. So no punches. Ben and I are both not fighters. I guess I just kept saying Ben here. Sorry to Ben, but maybe there'll be a couple people, but nothing bad happens here. Ben and I are both not fighters, and the entire time said to each other to avoid punches. It's just not worth it. I really hate fights, especially with my neighbors. Oh, so this is a neighbor. I understand it's a long story, but we avoided punches. The kid ran away because Ben and I jacked him up. We attracted a crowd, and I'm truly embarrassed. It came to that. I yelled at him, and our entire block seemed to witness the fight. The question comes to you, should we have punched him? Ben and I are both bigger. The situation could have ended if we did. It infuriated us that he decided to pick on our smaller roommate 20 minutes after starting nonsense with us. He was clearly looking for a fight. If I wanted to give him one, he would have had it. But I know myself, and I'm a fucking hothead. Okay, I think I would have detonated on the kid, and Ben would have too, but we both kept one another grounded and stressed no punches, so no further issues arose. In further situations, should punches be thrown, or should we just avoid them at all time? Look, I'm not going to sit here on a podcast and tell you, no, definitely start punching people all the time. You guys handle this great. So if you're worried about, okay, I guess what you're saying here is that these are his neighbors. There's 2 emails here, Kyle, so I can't really put it together. All right. This isn't, you guys actually were good in this. I mean, you roughed him up a little bit. He wouldn't leave you alone. I mean, it's an absolute loser move that he decided that then he wanted to fight once he saw the small roommate, which is, so that means he sucks even more than he'd already proven. Like, there's no evidence in here. I'm like, no, you handled this wrong. This guy actually sounds cool. Like, hear him out about the cigarette joke. Yeah, I don't think you guys should feel bad about anything. But if they're your neighbors, why are you going to have anxiety about it? He's the one that acted like an idiot. If anything, he should be coming over to you. Think about how that kid felt when he woke up. All right. I mean, unless he's so detached from reality that it doesn't even bother him. But if he was just super banged up and being a loser, his day the next day was way worse than yours. So you shouldn't have any anxiety about it. And if you run into him, he's the one that's embarrassed, not you. And you didn't even really do anything that bad to him. And if people saw it, there are times when it's like, okay, we're at our house, you're screwing with us. Now you're trying to fight our roommate. Look, there's a certain age where you get to, you're like, I don't want to punch anybody anymore. And even more so, I don't want to get punched because I don't know what age it happens. It probably happens with boxers later, where when you get punched in the face, you're like, okay, this isn't, before I'd get really mad. And now I'm tired and ashamed. That hurt. That stings. This isn't fun anymore. I don't like this. So yeah, don't worry about it. Stuff happens, and don't feel like you did anything wrong when you run into the guy, because you didn't really. Kyle?
I agree. Like, there's like degrees of things. Like, there's arguing, and then there's like vicious insults, and then there's like shoving, and then there's punching, and then there's weapons. So there's like different like degrees, and you like kept it under the punching, which is like
weapons.
Yeah, well, it's like a line that you can't like uncross. Like, if you punch somebody, you definitely punch it. If you pull out a weapon, like, oh shit, like this now becomes that much more real. It was like a shoving match, but not really, because he threw him into the ground or whatever. But like, he kept it under a certain threshold, and I think he knew what he was doing the whole time. So that was super responsible. Good job, dude.
Let's get back to the weapons comment. What?
It's just it makes it like it raises the stakes. Like, if the other guy has a weapon, he's definitely
but if you've
pulling
been
it
in
out.
a situation where that's happened,
yeah, I mean, people in Poughkeepsie carry knives all the time.
So you've had a knife pulled on you.
I mean, yeah, there's like groups and things as well. Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't want to say of
Gangs?
course. Like, no, I mean, no, not really. If anybody in Poughkeepsie told you they're in a gang, they're probably lying.
But you've been in fights where somebody had a knife.
Yeah. Mahoney's. Hey, guys go to their cars or whatever,
Did anyone ever get stabbed?
No, but it's like then it becomes like word travels, and it's like, that guy's got a knife, and it's like, it just like, I just think it makes like, not that fights are ever harmless, but there's like, it's sort of an agreed upon thing. It's like, all right, we're punching each other here, and then like, if there's like a guy has a knife, you're like, fuck, I gotta get like a brick or something. I don't know. It just makes it like, my whole point.
No, I get that part.
Okay.
I get the right. But what I can't understand is the knife part. Are we talking 13 or are we talking 23? Because there's a different level. Because there's a version of this story where it's like, man, don't mess with Kyle. He has ninja stars at lunch. Okay. And then I'm at a dive at 25.
Exactly. No, it's exactly what it is.
And somebody has a knife.
Exactly.
So it's the older one.
Yeah.
Is Kyle the toughest guy at the Ringer? I call him. Seriously.
I wasn't running around with knives. I don't want to.
Do you think you could beat me up?
No, I don't think so. Once I get back into LA Fitness, maybe. Once they open up the capacity.
Who knows? I might be a total fraud. Did you ever think about that?
No, I haven't thought about that. But now.
Yeah, there might not be anything. It might just be no smiling and big arms and nothing else there. Oh shit. I don't even want to do the other one now, but let's end something on a less hostile note, because I thought it was well written, and let's do this. Okay, so when we had the Eddie Bauer email on, that was brilliantly written, the thin stripe of status, I believe, was the line, and the lesson there was the father told the son, don't ever buy anything with a heart on. We had a guy reach out and said, hey, I've never felt the need. So this is kind of a thing for everybody. So we're going to end it on a bigger note here, a macro deal here for everybody listening. I've never felt the need to write an email of this sort until I heard the story of a listener almost buying an Eddie Bauer Ford Explorer with his father. All right. So we covered that. First off, 51 years old, 6'4", 195 pounds. And last year he benched 225 for the first time since college. All right.
Nice, dude.
I don't know how this happened, but we're doing these all the time now. COVID restrictions make you set some strange goals to pass the time. Writing that last sentence seems absurd at my age, but traditions are meant to be upheld. Growing up, my father was also very no nonsense with little time or inclination to give advice, help with your homework, or show affection. So basically, he didn't do those things. He's a first-generation Croatian who grew up in Brooklyn. My grandfather died unloading a cargo ship. My dad was very young, so my grandmother worked multiple factory jobs to keep food on the table and a roof overhead. My dad joined the Army right out of high school as the GI Bill was the only avenue to attend college. He met my mother in college, who'd been the valedictorian over Westchester High School with a banker father and librarian mother. He was a classic kid from the wrong side of the tracks, but they've now been married 61 years, so they knew what they were doing. To return to the point, the only exception to my dad's disinclination to give advice or show affection was when I was a child, is when he'd been drinking. He was just a social drinker, but if he had a couple too many, he would wander into my room to say goodnight after dinner with other couples in the neighborhood. He would sit on the edge of the bed and open up about how he wanted an easier life for me and my sisters than he had, how material things were not important, but experiences were, and how nothing and nobody comes before family. He also dispersed many turns of the phrase similar to the hard-on adage that your listener recounted that often took me years to make sense of. One such nugget is when he told me when I was 10 years old, it is better to be smart than intelligent. You have a chance to be both. Don't waste it. As he slowly pushed himself off the bed and weaved out of my room, I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought smart and intelligent were the same thing, so I did not think much of it at the time. But with most of the precious advice he gave in those revealing moments, it is something I have seen proven countless times over the next 40 years. So we're talking about 10-year-old kid here, dad, a couple sippers in him. I can't fathom that experience. I mean, granted, it's awesome that your dad, when he had a few pops, wanted to like connect emotionally because that was something he couldn't do normally, but that would freak me out. I can't even fathom like my dad just being like, all right, gun to your head. Mountain Jam or Elizabeth Reed. Man, you should move to Dubai. I'll visit. That's a great, your dad just being like, hey, you want to get some wings? That would be just so weird having your dad be like, I love that. That's a great shirt. All right, so back to this. My dad has smarts, and this is what allowed him to carve out a successful business career. 4 kids, 12 grandkids. The traditional term for this is street smarts, but that undersells their importance, is the ability to see all the angles, to read people and understand their motivations, and to recognize opportunities early and take advantage. In short, it is the ability to get a feel for your environment and quickly understand how you can turn it to your advantage. Intelligence would fall under the traditional term of book smarts and needs no further definition. Both are valuable, but both are limited. My dad recognized that even though my 10-year-old self was clueless at the time, his smarts took him as far as they possibly could in his career, but he saw that limit and wanted me to have the skills to push further. My mom had the intelligence, so he just wanted me to not waste that opportunity to combine the forces. Imagine 2 people playing poker. One has the ability to read the room effortlessly, and one has no common sense but can compute the varying odds down to a decimal point. It won't take long for the latter to be cleaned out. Now, if you can do both, you have the chance to be Phil Ivey. My advice for your listeners from a professional standpoint is to aggressively seek out new experiences. Put yourselves into uncomfortable situations that offer the chance for reward. Frequently take a step back to evaluate your environment and figure out what you can do to bend it to your will. In short, build up your smarts. At the same time, invest the time and effort to become as much of an expert in your field as possible. If they are smart and intelligent, it is all there for the taking. That's a shirt right there, Kyle. Now, I'm no Phil Ivey, but I like to think I was able to put much of what my dad taught me 40 years ago into practice. I went down an extremely esoteric path of derivatives trading, first in the pits of Chicago before finishing on a cushy bank trading floor. I cannot tell you how many uber-educated Ivy League types flame out when the pressure gets ratcheted up. At the same time, junior traders who don't get rattled still have to be able to understand the constantly shifting risks in order to stay on top of their positions. Not sure how useful this longer than expected thought exercise would be for your listeners, but I found it enjoyable to get it all down for myself. On a separate note, just wanted to say thank you for the years of programming, living in Asia the last 13 years. All right. So, hey, there you go, man. I thought that was really cool. I thought that that was kind of a cool combo, because not everybody's going to have both of those things that our man's talking about. But if you feel like, hey, I'm smarter than everybody else, but I haven't put it to practice, or hey, I can read the room and all that stuff, but I need, there are so many people that I've met. Like, look, work in construction, we get it. You're not dealing with guys that had Harvard as their safety, but then you'll ask them about, like, I'll make this really simple, like lumber, and they'll be like, no. And they just have it down. You know what I mean? They have it down like, hey, this is what the lumber market's doing. This is what's going on here, because they've spent their life in it. So it's a really good lesson in that just because you didn't graduate from the best school, or maybe you didn't even go to college, or maybe you didn't kill it in grades and all that different stuff, it's not that hard to master understanding a market or an industry if you really want to put that time into it. It's kind of like buying a house in a way, where if you start the process of looking at houses in a place that you want to live, but you put that time into it years before you're actually making the purchase, you'll know and be like, okay, this is a good price. All right, that's a bad price. All right, prices are up. Like, what's going on? I think you could apply what our guy is saying here in the email to a bunch of different industries for the younger people out there listening. So there you go. All right, good stuff. Get you fired up for the weekend. Enjoy the tournament. And that's what I'm going to do the rest of the day. So please subscribe. And as always, spread the word, and thank you.